And joining me now in the studio for an analysis of Iran's election is a professor of international law and security at Ademola, Abass. Good to have you join us, Professor Abass.
Thank you for having me.
So, President-elect Ibrahim Raisi, he was touted to win because of his relationship with the Ayatollah. He has now won. He's known as a hardliner. He has said he will cooperate with the nuclear deal, but he's not willing to meet with President Biden. How do you interpret that statement?
Well, thank you. I don't think it should surprise anybody. You've said it all. He's a hardliner. Don't forget, he's still under serious sanctions by the United States for the role he played in 1988 during the U.S. attack, in which there were mass executions of a lot of people, opponents, and he played a critical role in that. And also, he's a protege of the two Ayatollahs, Khomeini, the first one, and the Khamenei, which is still there today. So it's a prestige of them. So he's a hardliner. He's going to channel that course. And I think if anybody was in doubt until about 2 or 3 hours ago, whether he's going to be born again, he's going to have a rethink, he made it very clear. He said, number one, I am not, when they asked me whether I was going to meet with President Biden, just said no. No clarification, nothing, just no. Then another important question was whether he was going to back away from support to regional outfit like the Hamas, Hezbollah, and he said no, he's going to keep on supporting them, and that any discussion about the Iran nuclear programs is completely, it's non-negotiable. So it's already closed down on all this. So I don't understand what the message then is to the U.S. And don't forget that there are negotiations going on in Vienna now about reviving of the nuclear program. So it's pretty dicey.
It also means that the U.S. has a really short time before August to do whatever it needs to do in terms of the nuclear deal, because he's going to take over in August. But like you rightly noted, he is under sanctions from the Trump era. He's also linked with the Revolutionary Guard, which are backers of Hezbollah, which U.S. itself has said that, look, this group is a terrorist group. It's been designated a terrorist group, which means we cannot expect any level of reforms. So what other areas of contention do you see going forward?
Well, thanks. I think a major area of contention is the impact of his election on the regional peace as a whole. Look at Israel, for instance. And again, it's a kind of double whammy for the United States at this moment, because you have Naftali Bennett and in cohort with an opposition leader, and that is Lapidi. Both of them from different parties. Bennett is a far rightist, and then they are also working. Those two parties are working with 6. You have 8 from the 13 parties that won the election in March, forming, a government. It's disparate. You have the centrists, you have the leftists, you have the far right, from far right. It's a medley, and whether you like him or not, but Benjamin Netanyahu had a point when he said, look, this government is not going to be able to stand up to the U.S. as far as the question of Iran nuclear program is concerned. Also, cannot rein in Gaza's, Hamas. Don't forget, we just came from an 11-day war, of Gaza against Israel, which was only secure with a temporary, a very tenuous day ceasefire. So it's going to be very, very delicate, because you have from Israel, you have a government that might not be able to present a common front. Then if you move back, you have Iran, where you have a hardliner. So you have hardlining government on the right, hardlining government on the left. Both of them are wanting to talk in a nuclear deal. And then you look at what that means. Look at those who have congratulated Raisi so far. Obviously, Assad in Syria, the UAE Premier, Omar, and Yemen, the Houthis there in Yemen. Of course, they are coming down now. But so when you have the Hezbollah, you have the Houthis, in Yemen, and then you have the Hamas, you have a complete chaos if you cannot manage, this particular piece.
And you rightly mentioned Naftali Bennett. He issued a statement. He issued that statement in a cabinet meeting where people expected that he would speak Hebrew, but he spoke English, and he was really standing against the deal. And it means that he was trying to send a message to world leaders to say, look, especially with this new president-elect, we're going to stand against, whatever deal the U.S. is making with Iran. How does that play into all of this?
Well, I understand where Bennett is coming from. He's also going to be under enormous pressure. Don't forget, Netanyahu hasn't disappeared, and he vowed that he would do everything to bring down this particular government. And don't forget, Bennett only won by a majority of 1 vote. It's 60 against 59. But hey, you have, I mean, thankfully, I say thankfully, we have somebody in Washington today, Biden, who is radically different from his predecessor in terms of being able to leverage international, because you need international coalition. You need to build bridges. And he began to do that, I mean, as I saw 2 weeks ago, last when he went to Europe. You know, he was able to build a very strong alliance, you know, put US back into the, you know, the North Atlantic Alliance. He was able to carry all of the European, you know, allies on. And even more importantly was that at least he had a kind of understanding with Putin. We can't overemphasize that. But at least, you know, I mean, yesterday, Moscow sent, you know, its ambassador back to Washington. Washington is going to. So we have international alliances now being built in a much more stronger manner than during Trump. So I'm just hoping that President Biden will be able to leverage on that, to be able to bring enormous pressure on Israel, despite the fact that, you know, I mean, what Bennett is saying. I think, you know, it's not completely berserk, but we have to just have to be cautiously optimistic.
But can he do, especially when you look at the fact that this man has been linked to Hezbollah, and he has said, look, they are not going to stop supporting Hezbollah, which is designated as a terrorist organization. If President Biden cannot come to an agreement before August when Ibrahim Raisi takes office, what chances does he have?
Well, let's forget that sanctions are still there. And sanctions play a critical role at the end of the day. And I think, look, what Raisi is saying today is what is expected of him. You know, he's a lacquer of the Ayatollahs, he's a revolutionary. Don't forget also he's the head of the, you know, judiciary just before he was elected. So he's done this, been there. So you will expect him to come talking very hard. That is why he was elected anyway. And that is why, you know, all those hardliners supported him. So what he's doing is not totally unexpected. But the question is, what the U.S. will do with it? If by August, U.S. is not able to secure a deal with Rohini, who is a moderate, well, August is almost just 2 months away. U.S. might not be able to do that. But I think whatever happens, even if U.S. is unable to do that before August, I don't think all hope is lost. I think there will be more sanctions on Iran. And this time it's going to be massive now because U.S. is building a much more stronger bridge now with the rest of its allies across the world. I don't think Iran is going to be able to withstand that. I think there will be softening of pedal, even from Raisi as he ascends throne in August.
A lot to watch out for here, because Raisi would be expecting that the U.S. lift sanctions just before they come to the table. So let's see how that plays out. Professor Ademola Abass, Professor of International Law and Security, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.